It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, will the Republicans be able to pass a budget resolution? A lot of talk yesterday. Wall Street Journal had an editorial. Speaker was out there talking yesterday about the budget resolution, saying, look, this just leads us to reconciliation. We don't need to specify the cuts now. You had conservatives saying, no, we want to specify the cuts to make sure that we actually make these cuts. Here was the speaker yesterday talking about it. Here we go.
So I want to make four important points about the Senate's amendment to our House resolution. Number one, the budget resolution is not the law. Okay, all this does is it allows us to continue the process, begin drafting the actual legislation that really counts, and that's the one big beautiful bill. Number two, the Senate amendment makes no changes to the reconciliation instructions that we put into the budget resolution. So our objectives remain intact. Number three, any final reconciliation bill has to include historic spending reductions that we included in our resolution, while also safeguarding essential programs. And you've heard a commitment from us over and over that will happen, and the president has said it himself over and over as well. The fourth point is that reconciliation will be a collaborative process between the House and Senate. You're going to see the Republican Party in both chambers working together as one team. I know that's a rare occasion, and people don't really know what that looks like, but we're actually going to do it this time. The House is not going to participate in an us versus them charade. We won't do it. To secure and accomplish our mission, we got to be working together and rowing in the same direction. And I'm fiercely committed to doing that, and so is Leader Thune and our members on both sides.
One House member said, this is as recently as Monday, the Senate plan that passed will easily fail on the House floor. The fiscal House was granted anonymity, as were other people, to speak candidly about private conversations. On the call, GOP leaders argued that House Republicans desperately need to advance a Senate-approved plan without changes or trigger another month of delays in the process, according to two people with direct knowledge of the conversation. Several House Republicans have vowed in recent days to oppose the Senate framework, including Representative Chip Roy. In fact, I saw a story that said, as of yesterday morning, there were still 10 Republicans that would not vote for it in the House.
Right, yeah.
But including Chip Roy of Texas, a leader of the hard right bloc, and some other members of the House Freedom Caucus, with a 220-213 majority, Speaker can only lose 3 Republicans on a party line vote if all members are present and voting. So, again, you've got those Republicans saying, we don't believe it.
Right.
We want to see more specifics in here, and frankly, we want more cuts than what you're talking about.
Right.
That even what's in your resolution, even if you agree, he's saying the final reconciliation bill must contain historic spending reductions. They said, well, we want an idea to lay out what those would be.
Right.
That's what they want, and so we'll see what happens in this. Didn't hear a lot of news on this at all yesterday.
No. Look, there are a number of things right now in play. Just reading the story from the Washington Post, the White House stresses desire to cut deals amid tariff turmoil. This is from yesterday evening. And that President Donald Trump on Tuesday stressed that he wants to make highly tailored deals with countries. And basically he's saying, there's so many countries over 70, he said, but they all want to come in. Our problem is we can't see that many that fast. In other words, it's going to take some time to work these deals out. That's a problem for Capitol Hill because as the markets, if, we see another down day on the markets, that continues, then they're going to have to answer for that. And here's the thing, too. Easter break for 2 weeks after today.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing that is going to happen from Capitol Hill for the next 2 weeks, and this continues to go on for 2 weeks because they can't get deals done, then those House members are going to be in their districts. They're going to hear those calls. There's going to be that political pressure. So then you get back to the whole idea of where they are as a party. You know, he says, look, we're going to work together. It's not us versus them. Well, if you say so. But still, fiscal conservatives are going to be concerned about what it is you're saying you're going to do, because this sounds like, listen, just work with us, just like the CR. Just work with us, and when we get down to doing the deed, then you can start fighting. And conservatives are saying, well, no, let's get more specific on those cuts now so we can basically holding the feet to the fire of leadership, both in the House and Senate, to say when we get to reconciliation, we want to know that these things are going to be recognized and we're going to deal with them. And we want that outlined right now. I don't know. I don't know where it goes today, but you're right, it is quiet. And it's usually quiet because there's a lot of turmoil that's going on. But we haven't seen, big statements by those that, the conservatives and everything else. We haven't seen much. We may see, maybe we'll see some of that today.
Yeah, you'll probably see some of it today, especially after a vote if it doesn't go through.
Yeah.
Either way, if it goes through or it doesn't go through, you're going to hear from both. And if it does go through, you're going to have the Freedom Caucus, which is going to want to be out there and say, okay, we did this, but here's, what we demand, in the future. And so it's really unclear what's going to happen there. Yesterday on the tariffs, early on, it was incredible to go on social media and you saw every single Trump surrogate saying, see, everybody loves the tariffs. Mm-hmm. Look at the stock market booming. Mm-hmm. And then from its peak, it dropped 1,300 points and ended up closing negative, 320, something like that is what it was yesterday. Then everybody really went quiet. The surrogates have really gone quiet if you look at really the last 12 hours. It's been extremely quiet. You and I talked about, in fact, let me play this here from Ted Cruz, because everybody's creating their own unicorn about what the president should do, not what the president is saying he is going to do.
Right.
Here's Ted Cruz.
The road.
Take what deal?
Take the deal, make deals, and actually work to lower tariffs. Look, we're at a fork in the road, and it's a real...
Lower or reciprocal?
Lower tariffs on both sides. Reciprocal. I'm saying reciprocal, but here's the fork in the road. What do you do once you announce these tariffs last week? One option, and the option that I hope and pray the president takes, is you've got countries beating a path to the White House saying, Uncle, let us up. We'll slash our tariffs. We'll slash our barriers to trade in exchange for you doing it. If the outcome of these tariffs announced last week is in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, we see tariffs slashed worldwide. We see the barriers to U.S. farmers and ranchers and manufacturers dropping enormously, and suddenly we're able to access other markets, and these tariffs drop here. That's a great outcome. President Trump has the opportunity for the most extraordinary economic win for the American people right now.
There's Ted Cruz yesterday, and the opportunity is there. And I think a lot of people would be thrilled if the president did that. There is no indication over the last week, because it was a week ago. We're now Wednesday. Mm-hmm. It was a week ago that they announced it, and they have stuck on it. This is not about evening out the tariffs. It's not about that. The president made it clear he wants equal trade. Mm-hmm. He wants equal trade with every single country, either a surplus or equal trade. We cannot have a deficit with any countries. That's where the president is right now. He has not changed at all on that. They have been consistent on that message. You know this is bothering the daylights out of Elon Musk, who went after Navarro yesterday and called him a moron. And so what I'm hearing, same thing I heard from Art Laffer and Larry Kudlow. They're saying, great opportunity, and Trump's going to do this. Trump isn't saying he's going to do that. And I think there was an editorial somewhere that said, eventually people are going to have to take Trump literally. At some point, you have to take him literally, because that's been the biggest defense since we've been covering Trump of something. If we dislike it, well, your guys are taking him literally. So we're paying attention to what he actually says. Yes. And that's wrong. Yes. Then what do you have to do? Well, you just have to trust him because it's 17-dimensional chess. Well, that's your answer. Your answer is you have no idea. And as we have stated, when you look at back in USMCA NAFTA, because I go back and look at somebody's history, right? That's what you do. What are they going to do now? Well, what did they do in the past on trade? What did Trump do with USMCA? It was basically the same as NAFTA. He told his followers it was completely different. NAFTA's gone. This is the best free trade agreement ever. He knew that was a lie when he said that and sold it to his surrogates. We said it back then, but his surrogates ate it up. It didn't matter whether Trump delivered what they wanted or not. If he said he did, they didn't fact check it. It's fine. And then Trump comes back now and says this is the worst trade deal you could possibly ever have. Well, you did it. All those tariffs that you saw, dairy 297%, butter 4,300. Well, okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but all those that were used by the White House to shock was exactly what Trump negotiated with them. So we know what happened. Trump realized he couldn't get it through. He didn't go along. Navarro was part of it. You had, at that point, Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore. They won that round. And then they were kicked out and Navarro was brought back. And so this was always our fear. And we stated this fear a year ago. If Trump wins and he doesn't bring back the capitalist, if he brings back all the what I view as the socialists, which would be in Navarro, which is why a couple of weeks ago, I called him an idiot. Because I always believe, because what he believes is that we're not going to drop our tariffs. They've got to drop theirs. We're not going to drop ours. That's what the plan is. We're going to keep the tariffs.
We've seen examples of that.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do here. We're going to put tariffs on you if you have no tariffs on us. And then they bring up, the falsehoods that a value-added tax is a trade barrier. No, it's not. It's not if it's applied to both sides. And if it's applied just to a value-added tax for domestic and not imports, well, then you actually win on that one. But if it's applied to both, you don't lose. Right. And so so they stopped using that. So now they're just talking about unfair trade barriers. Then they went past, well, what is that? Well, an unfair trade barrier is if we have a deficit with any country, It must be a surplus or even. And so all the Republicans are out there talking about a unicorn. They're talking about what the president...
Or they're building out this if.
Yeah.
A massive contingency and this conditional unicorn.
Right. If the president did what Ted Cruz said, and I would be for that, I'd also be for matching, the tariffs or doing whatever you can to unify the world against China. You've got to find a way to do that instead of people trying to unify, because the White House yesterday, oh, you think you're going to unify with China? Well, you basically rejected them.
Right.
You basically said, well, we're not going to be fair in our trade at all. We're going to put tariffs on you. You don't put them on us.
Right.
So all Republicans are out there doing this unicorn thing, which the president isn't even talking about. Now, if he did that, I would be happy, but it would be going against what he wants because he knows he can't win it, economically speaking. That's why he would do it.
Right.
And that's what he did.
Well, there's only a few ways to go here.
That's what he did with USMCA.
Yeah, to keep the tariffs in forever, which won't go well. To make deals that don't live up to your standards as you stated them, which, again, if you want to do that victory lap and say, well, we worked a deal and look at the economy, it's booming again, again, like USMCA, there's really only a few directions this can go. It's not going to, I don't believe anything's going to be worked out over the next month. I don't think we're going to see much movement on this over the next month. China, we've talked about for years now. And I think that play will be in play because China's not going to budge.
The only thing you wonder what's going to happen, I haven't checked the 30 and 10-year Treasury bills yet, but, China's, that big talk yesterday was them, dumping treasuries.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of a sudden we've seen the interest rates skyrocket, both on a 30-year and a 10-year Treasury bill, which is going to do what? It's going to increase the cost of, and it's going to increase the interest on the debt drastically.
Right.
And you've had calls from some economists. Well, the president this morning has to start a QA again, which is printing money to buy our own debt.
Right.
To keep down interest rates, which was partly responsible for the inflation that we saw a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. I don't expect any interest rate or QE announced today. I don't expect that to happen. Peter Schiff was posting about that last night, several hours ago, saying that if there's not an emergency rate decrease and QE put in place, that today could be a really bad day on the stock market. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't expect there to be a rate drop or QE announced, though. And we'll see what happens on Wall Street.
Yeah, 30-year up to 4.8. It did reach over 5, and or did it reach? I don't know if the 30-year reached over 5. Did it? Yeah, it did. But it's 4.8 right now, and the 10-year is at 4.34. That did reach 4.5. That went up. That in the last couple of days when it peaked. Who knows what it'll end up at the end of today? But that peaked. It was a half a percentage point just a few days. 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howe's Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Lowland flooding continues in a stretch of the Ohio River Valley and its tributaries. The aftermath of torrential rains late last week.
Moderate to major flooding ongoing, and in some of the larger rivers, including the Ohio, continuing to worsen as that water runs off from the tributaries into the main stem rivers.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says crest marks are being recorded at river locales not seen in almost 3 decades.
For some people, this is a once-in-a-generation flood event. Extensive lowland and agricultural land flooding, a lot of pastures and cropland underwater across the lower Midwest into the Mid-South.
Some crop acreage in places like Arkansas has been washed out and will need to be replanted if soil drying occurs. Looking out a week, Rippey says the Mississippi River should be wide and deep enough to handle incoming floodwater, and barring additional rainfall, should avoid major flooding. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Yeah, looking at the let me see, Mortgage News Daily. Mortgage rates surged to highest levels since February. That's really, as we got to the end of yesterday, was one of the major concerns when you had economists looking at the both the 10-year and the 30-year treasuries out there and how they were skyrocketing in interest rates. And you saw the fear out there that mortgage rates could go to 8%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just panicking everybody at this point.
Yeah, right.
We'll talk about the whole panic concept, though, coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Yeah, I think part of the panic, I think the panic that set in yesterday was really when you saw the increase in the 30-year Treasury and the 10-year Treasury. Mm-hmm. When they started skyrocketing. I'm looking at just the headlines here. Current mortgage rates head upward after dramatic drop. Mortgage rates set to drop after tariff turmoil. That was just 19 hours ago, and really until you had China, till it really got, I don't know what happened, but it hit in the United States. Oh, my God, China's going to dump their treasuries, which means that's going to skyrocket it, which means interest rates are going to go up, which means mortgage rates will go up. How far they'll go up, who knows? I've seen some put the figure of 8%. So when you saw that, when you saw Trump out there yesterday saying, next up, we're going to put tariffs on pharmaceuticals, you're like, that doesn't sound good because people understand now. I think it's 75. I've seen the polling, 75 to 80% of people believe prices are going to go up. So they understand the tariffs relate to higher prices. That's not good. On the mortgage market, if they start going up, and there's a lot of concern there, that's also going to affect the stock market. What you see is, and I was when I was watching, I think it was the 5 on Fox News, and a couple of people were saying, "I'm not worried about my 401k. I'm not worried about it. Doesn't really matter to me." And it's like, well, yeah, but you're not the average working person who has a 401k,
Right.
You're not the person who has saved $100,000 and now it's down to 80.
Right.
And when you say, everybody don't panic, don't panic, don't panic, you know what I think of? The movie 2012. Mm-hmm. When Arnold Schwarzenegger is up there as governor of California going, don't panic, don't panic.
Listen to me. There's no reason to panic here.
And then
don't go out there. There's a bomb out there.
He goes, everything is safe, and then the earthquake happens, and everybody goes crazy.
The earth is splitting into two as they take off in the jet.
Right through the supermarket. Yeah. Exactly. That was realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's like, well, the only reason it's happening is because people are panicking. As we have said, that is what's called economics.
Mm-hmm.
And you can scream and say people shouldn't do it. Nobody's paying attention to you. They're paying attention to their own self-interest and what they see is happening. It's what we have said all along. That if the president decided, this was back when, to put in tariffs, economics will show you where the problems are, and economics is what will make the biggest impact. And you can't change economics. You cannot change how people respond to incentive and disincentive. You can lecture them. You can insult them. You can call them weak, as the president did the other day. Doesn't matter. People respond to their own self-interests.
Well, and companies are going to respond when it comes to their planning.
Yeah.
Cash is king right now. Because you cannot be cash poor right now, and you can't be cash poor in a down economy if there's going to be any growth or coming out of that down economy for your company. You're going to have to, it's so you have companies that are, and investors that are sitting on that cash waiting to see. They're going to sit this one out. That's the whole problem. You sell off, you sit it out, you're going to have that cash on hand if there's going to be any rebuilding in the future. They're preparing for the worst. That's not weak. That's how things are done.
Yeah. But like I said, you can name call, you can say what, it's not going to stop economics. You can manipulate the economy. You cannot change. One thing I've learned from observing history, you can't change economics.
Nope.
How many times have we said that? And it doesn't matter what you say, what you threaten, what names you call people, all they care about. And if you think you're trying to sell a message to a significant portion of the American people that only rich people have 401ks, you are dead wrong.
Because what we're seeing right now isn't the consumer response just yet, because everything's just kicking in.
Yeah,
the consumer response is going to be another driver, because that will be the reality. That will tell the markets what is what.
Yeah, when I went and got my car, just maintenance the other day, and I said, could you make sure if there's any parts, you order them right now? And I didn't need any parts, but I was joking. And then I talked and I said, anything yet? And they said, no, we're just waiting. I said, any price increases on parts? She goes, no, because everything's still in inventory. And they have a lot of a Mazda.
Yeah, it
place.
hasn't really hit yet for the consumer.
Because we have a Mazda place. Because a lot of our stuff comes from the Alabama plant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so, but, when it comes, we'll pass it on, and it will come. She goes, we've already had all the meetings on it. And I asked, well, when you talk about the meetings, what have they said? They said, treat this like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to treat this like we all went through COVID. Treat this like the first few months of COVID. And service person just shaking their head going, oh, but like, here we go.
Yeah, because it has to be passed on. They're going to be hit on the wholesale level. You look at that. I have a family member who's in wholesale for supplies, electronics, or electrical rather, and plumbing. Well, those things get hit. There's a number of things that, and then that's passed on when the consumer is finally hit. And all of this is fully in play at the retail level. That's when you start seeing the real effect. That's what companies are planning on right now. This is what the response on Wall Street right now is all about, of what the companies are doing, what they're planning for, what they're bracing for. The consumer hasn't felt the full effect because we're just now getting to it now.
The volatility, though, of the markets right now, as I've said before, it's like Christmas here, looking at my computer screen, looking at CNBC where they have everybody lined up. I'm looking at all the pre-markets here, all the Dow futures, NASDAQ, S&P, oil, 10-year Treasury bill. A 10-year Treasury bill is just going up. But the rest look like I'm watching Christmas lights, because it is just what have we seen? Almost 1,000 points fluctuation from top to bottom and back and forth. I mean, the Dow has dropped a couple of hundred points in just a minute.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just looking at it. It was up.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, boom, it's down 70.
Mm-hmm.
And it's moving. You can tell the day traders are all over this.
Mm-hmm.
The night traders.
Mm-hmm.
The third shift traders. And so the S&P futures are up a little bit right now. NASDAQ's up. The Dow futures is down, and it could be completely different.
It can change a minute before close.
Yeah, 2 minutes from now. It's just,
in fact, on Friday, it was towards the end of the close when things really started to go south. Further south than they were.
Yeah, this I've never seen, though. Even in 2020, it was basically went down or went up because you knew what was happening at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You had an idea. Nobody has any idea what's going to happen here. And I really think that the whole thing of China and other countries saying, well, we can punish you by not buying your debt.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was something that has really just made people say, okay, where the hell is this going to go now?
Well, and, that gets back to what Congress does on spending, right?
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with a massive $36 trillion in debt. And if other nations are looking at it going, hey, we don't want to buy any of your debt anymore, we can walk away from all of this. That's a problem. But none of this is going to be fixed anytime soon, I'm convinced.
Well, I'd look to see because they were talking, the reporters talking in the White House. They're like, well, you're making this sound like that these people are coming in for meetings and you'll have a deal done tomorrow.
Right.
Trade deals are extremely complicated when you're redoing it.
Right.
NAFTA, remember, and it was just looking at one trade agreement. NAFTA took over 2 years to negotiate. USMCA, which was much the same as NAFTA, the vast majority of NAFTA is what's in USMCA, still that took over a year to negotiate.
Yeah,
and
they've made it clear. They're going to do this is going to be a sit down with each of them individually. When you talk about trillions of dollars, the president's been boasting about trillions of dollars of investment coming in manufacturing, which is something you get your victory lap on. But when you look at that, it is okay. The question is, well, then how can you go and reverse the tariffs? You're going to go to all these companies that are building now. Again, collectively, they're claiming, I think he said 6 trillion, 7 trillion is where they're at now. Let's just say it's half of that, 4 trillion. Collectively, you're going to look at them all and go, hey, guys, all this is for naught because I reversed the tariffs.
Well, the other thing
I don't expect these tariffs to be reversed.
Right, but the other thing is Navarro made it clear the other day we don't want companies building in the United States. He made that clear the other day. That's a problem. I forgot, who did he single out? What company did he single out? He singled out a specific company. He goes, it's the car manufacturer in South Carolina. He goes, we don't need this. Navarro does not want foreign companies building in the United States.
It's happening, and the president's having press conferences about it.
But that's the problem. You've got the left not communicating the same message as the right all over the place in this. Every single day it's the same thing. And then you go to Congress and you say, all right, what do you think, Republicans in Congress? Well, if we can get this out of the deal, well, that's a unicorn. You're saying you hope the president does this. He's been specific the last 2 days. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to do this. And you're talking about the solution is what he has said he doesn't want to do. I don't know what to say.
Well, clearly Navarro doesn't have the president's ear on that because the president's been running victory laps on that. I mean, almost daily on the investment, the foreign investment in the U.S.
I know. I agree with you. That's why the Navarro thing, when we talked about it the other day, I'm like, where's this coming from?
Yeah. So in action, it's actually happening. So, which tells me that
BMW,
a great deal of these tariffs aren't going to be reversed.
Yeah, here it is, a story. White House trade advisor criticizes BMW South Carolina operations. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro criticized BMW's business model in South Carolina, stating it is detrimental to the U.S. economy and national security. The business model where BMW and Mercedes comes to South Carolina and assembles German engines and Australian transmissions doesn't work for America. It's bad for our economics. It's bad for our national security.
He wants them to have their transmissions and engines built here, too.
Right. He wants everything. Exactly.
Yeah. So right. Like he's telling Tesla. Which isn't going to happen.
No, it's not.
You're not going to get 100% of the cars built here. That just isn't. There might be a couple of automakers that try to get close to that, but you still won't be able to do it.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, I guess we'll see what happens again, where the stock market goes. Dow down 161 right now. Dow futures, S&P down 9, Nasdaq up 42.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens at close. That's because it can go. It's just going to be a wild swing, another roller coaster.
Yep.
Based on things that are said. So.
Oil now down to almost 57.20.
Yeah,
57.21 right now, down $2.37 just in the futures from yesterday.
Right.
So
and, that's the other driver here on another front, and that is the concern of a current recession. That we're currently in a recession, and the definition is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. And right now, the forecast, or many believe, I guess, are putting some weight into that GDP now forecast for the first quarter. Is that, as we head into the second quarter, is that going to be the case there? But again, that's also a driver for investors, that they believe a recession is here.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.